We've seen a lot this past offseason: the formation of super teams, the deconstruction of championship teams, and even the ascension of new teams. And then there's Leviathan. Of all the things to be excited for moving into 2024, it's gotta be this roster. I mean, just looking at them on paper, we got one of the most legendary players to come out of the Latam scene in Kingg, a Brazilian world champion in Aspas, arguably the best player to come out of Tier 2 this year in Tex, one of the most solid smokes players across the Americas League in Mazino, and then there's, of course, to round out the roster, one of the best Initiator players in the scene in Nozar? Leviathan in the public eye are definitely one of the most dangerous teams heading into VCT 2024, and not just for the Americas region. People are putting this roster on super team status among the likes of Fnatic and the newly formed NRG. We're expecting this team to qualify and be competing for trophies at all international events this year. And it's for good reason too. Like I already said, this is an incredibly stacked roster on paper, and we gotta of course start with Aspas. This was of course the biggest superstar move of the offseason. Aspas leaving Loud? Many didn't think it would ever happen, but here we are. And if you watched my previous team preview on Loud, you already know how highly I rate this guy. Loud losing him in many ways was a devastating blow, as he was easily one of the most impactful players across the entire VCT scene. But in the same vein, with Lev now bringing him onto their roster, they have just added a huge amount of firepower that simply wasn't there in their 2023 season. Sorry, Taco. I mean, if you needed any more convincing, just look at this graph of some of the best players ranked by their KD ratio throughout the VCT Americas League regular season. Anything north of a 1.0 KD could be considered good. Get past 1.1 and you're a phenomenal fragger. This is where you'll start to see players like DigiZin, Zekin, Som, and Demon 1. Get past a 1.2 KD, and this is where you'll really start to see some of the best players among the likes of his new teammate Kingg, Victor, Les, and Leaf. And then there's Aspas. When it comes to straight firepower and kills, there's really no one close. Not to mention, he also had a 0.95 first kills per round when no other player could even crack a 0.9, so more often than not he's also getting you the first kill across the map. Safe to say, this is the biggest level up in a player any team could have made across the offseason. But a super team, of course, has more than one piece. Leviathan smartly made the move to keep some of their best pieces in Kingg and Mazino. When it comes to Kingg, if you guys are a fan of VCT, you already know who this guy is. I mean, do I really have to play the clip?
What a blunder! What a whiff! It's match point for the Kingg! You've got to be kidding me! They know he does the 4 damage! This is absolutely absurd!
Yeah, he's that guy. Kingg has been one of the best players across the scene for the last 2 years, and certainly in my opinion the best player to come out of the Latam region, except maybe of course you can make an argument for Kesnet all time. Regardless, the guy is a fantastic player. Across 8 weeks of VCT Americas, he was the 5th highest rated player in impact rating and tied for 4th in KD, and he did all this while IGLing the team, which if you didn't know, in Valorant is really impressive. Most players turned IGLs or IGLs in general tend to take a pretty big dip in personal performance when they're needed to lead the team. Just take a look across any of Valorant's best teams throughout the years and you can see that oftentimes their IGL is their weakest player stats wise. But while Kingg's numbers were good, his IGLing ability was a bit lackluster in 2023. While they started out great, Leviathan quickly became one of the most readable teams across VCT Americas. They really just ran out of ideas early into the season. Like I'm pretty sure even ranked players know and use their Ascent pistol strat, and while you could put some of that on Kingg, it definitely felt like more a coaching situation. And when it comes to Mazino, he for the most part was a stable smokes player this past year. Across VCT, he had pretty average stats, but it really was the back half of the season where we started seeing him have a bad slump of performances. Most of these occurred on the Omen, while his Astra and Harbor stats were actually among the best in the league. So that being said, I'm hopeful he can work on his Omen and come back into the new season in good form.
Out some of the C-mount position. Tex stepping forward. Goodness,
oh my.
Challenge he doesn't want? Are you kidding me? Tex is having his way.
As for one of their newest members, Tex, this guy is coming in red hot off of his Ascension win with G2 Esports, formerly The Guard. Tex really proved this past year that he belonged in Tier 1 Valorant. He was consistently one of the best duelist players in Challengers Americas, and he was able to take it against some of the best international competition at the Ascension tournament in Brazil. While he looked like an average to above average player for most of his VCT career, he really found a way to elevate his game in 2023. The only thing that may be of some concern with Tex is that with joining Leviathan, he's going to have to make a role swap from duelist to flex. Of course, with Aspas on the team, he won't be the team's primary duelist anymore. So we'll have to see if Tex can hold up his performances on a different role once the season starts. But with time, I'm pretty sure he can. From the way this guy has been talking and performing all year long, he definitely still feels like he has a chip on his shoulder and is willing to put in the work to achieve it. And when you have players like that who are willing to outwork everyone else, then it's better you don't bet against them. Now, of course, we have to take a look at the Initiator position because there was a lot of discourse surrounding what happened between players Nozar and Comm. There was a lot of internal team conflict surrounding the benching of Nozar and signing of Comm in January. It was reported that some players wanted Nozar off the team while others wanted him on. It's pretty well known that one of the main reasons Aspas even joined this team to begin with was to play with Nozar, and he made sure to show his support on Twitter once Nozar was put onto their bench. Looks like another classic case of a super team implosion before the start of the season. Regardless, this is the current situation. Alongside the other four, Comm will be playing primary Initiator for the team. Now, many initially thought this was a fantastic move strictly on paper. Of course, Comm won the most recent World Championship with Evil Geniuses, so everyone knows how good of a player he is. But then I started thinking about it. Is he really that much of an upgrade over Nozar? Now, I know some of you might think I'm crazy for even suggesting Nozar might be the better player, but when you look back at his numbers this past season, it's not that far-fetched. Over the course of the VCT America's regular season, you can see that Nozar actually had a pretty significantly better performance than Comm across the four major statistical categories. He had a better impact rating, ACS, KD, and even ADR. Now you might say, well, that's not really fair. EG were terrible at the start of the season, but got better as time went on. Well, yes, but you can say the exact inverse happened for Nozar. Lev started the season out hot, but got progressively worse as it moved on. Looking at their playoff stats, you can see that Comm's remained virtually unchanged, while Nozar did take a dip in performance, but even his dip is still comparable to Comm's stats here. But what about the international events? Everyone knows Comm really showed up for those, right? Looking at his stats across Masters Tokyo and Champions 2023, you can see that he didn't really improve going into Tokyo, but did have a bit of a boost at Champions. But looking at these numbers, you probably thought he did better at those tournaments than he actually did. These were mostly average performances. It's not like he was a top-rated player at any of these events. So am I really saying Comm somehow wasn't a good player or was necessary in EG's deep runs at those tournaments? No. While numbers do of course paint a picture, they don't paint the complete thing. While by most metrics Comm was just an above average player at these events, he was an absolutely instrumental piece in EG's success. He was of course known for his insane clutches and backdoor flanks. The guy was a menace in the server. Anytime you lost track of where he was, better believe he was behind you. With this playstyle, he definitely helped to secure many rounds that never should have been won. Not to mention, he also spearheaded EG's unbeatable fracture composition with his great Sova gameplay. Yeah, this guy is a great player and definitely deserves to play for a tier 1 team, no doubt. All I was trying to point out with the stats is that the gap may not be as large as you may think. And factoring past synergy with teammates, if it weren't for the rumored internal team conflicts, I think you could make an argument to keep Nozar. Just take a look at the Superdome off-season event. While I don't put the most stock into these off-season tourneys, Leviathan were playing against other VCT America's teams like Crew, Furia, and even Cloud9. Leviathan smoked these teams. It wasn't even close. And across all maps, it was Nozar and Aspas leading the way. Yeah, you know that Kobe and Shaq meme? That was basically them at the Superdome event. So before Comm, it already looked like this team was going to be very strong going into the year. And the Aspas-Nozar synergy looked like it was already there. So now it's up to Comm to live up to his reputation. If anything, Nozar is still technically on their bench. If things really don't pan out with Comm, they can sub him in. Going into 2024, I'm expecting a lot from this team. They have a completely revamped roster with firepower across the board and very experienced and proven players. A lot of the team issues they had last year could easily be fixed in my opinion, one of them being just straight up not having enough depth in their strat book, and they also had the idea that somehow anti-stratting other teams isn't worth their time. I mean, their coach literally said in interviews that they don't even try to anti-strat other teams. Well, thank God he's gone from the team this year. And while King's IGLing was dicey, it could be he was just being a good team player and listening to how the coach wanted them to be playing. I think this year will be a good litmus test of how good King's IGLing actually is. And if he can do a good job while holding these performances, he's going to be a very valuable player. As for the rest of the team, Aspas, Tex, Comm, and Mazino, we already know what they bring to the table. Firepower, experience, and just very solid overall players. I'm predicting Leviatán to be a top 2 team in the Americas League this year, fighting for trophies at internationals. Let's just hope that any internal team drama is resolved come the start of the season. They're definitely looking like one of the most exciting teams heading into the VCT season, and you'll want to keep your eyes on them. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more team previews or VCT related content, be sure to click on one of the videos on the left hand side of your screen. Be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to see more content just like this. Thanks for watching.